So out of all the JoJo parts that exist, part 4 Diamond is Unbreakable and part 5 Golden Wind are the ones that get compared and put against each other the most. Why is that? Well, it's for several reasons, like the many differences between them, how they do certain things better than the other, and the fact that they're the respective predecessor and successor of one another as well, not to mention that they both came after the part that introduced stand abilities first, with that said part also being the most popular and iconic part in the series worldwide, which is of course part 3 Stardust Crusaders, which many JoJo fans, including myself, will agree had many elements to it that were heavily improved upon by parts 4 and 5. Now on paper, part 4 looks like it does some things better than part 5, whether that be having a better main villain or a more coherent story, and having done my research on what fans seem to prefer more when comparing both these two parts, it seems many of them tend to favour part 4 over part 5 for the two reasons that I've already stated, along with some more. Now let's not get it twisted, this is all still subjective, it's all a matter of preference, so there is no objectively right opinion when it comes to discussing a topic like this, but considering that so many people feel this way, there is obviously a good reason for it. So in this video I'm going to discuss 4 things that I think JoJo's part 4 Diamond is Unbreakable does better than part 5 Golden Wind, starting off with the main villains. Now if there's one thing that all of us JoJo fans love the most is a pretty damn good villain, but we can all also agree that the main villains in JoJo's can vary in quality for some of us, probably all of us actually, but for many JoJo fans that is especially the case when discussing and comparing the likes of part 4's Yoshikage Kira and part 5's Diavolo. Now if you've seen my video discussing why I think the mob boss is such an underrated villain, then you know that I'm a big fan of the character. However, even as a big fan of Diavolo, I have to admit that there are elements of his character that Araki could have handled better, or probably should have just changed altogether. And if not Araki, then at the very least David Productions. Now why am I mentioning David Pro? Well, you see in the part 5 anime they chose to make the La Squadra, the Hitman team members, visible and present in the beginning of the story instead of hiding their identities one by one until they had to fight someone on Bucciarati's team like in the manga, which I think was a great change because it gave them more of a presence. We could see the little quirks and details of each of their characters and personalities, and this allowed us, the audience, to better connect with them and understand their motivations as well. Diavolo sadly didn't get the same treatment, which makes sense considering the themes of his character and how the story played out. However, when you compare it to the likes of Kira, who is always present and almost in our faces throughout the second half of part 4, this puts Diavolo at a big disadvantage when debating which one of the two is better, because the lack of his real face and appearance being shown to the audience for most of the story while he is on screen can make him very forgettable to a lot of people, often making them wish that they got to see more of him. And I can resonate with that opinion as well, because I do still wish that we got to see more of him in his true appearance within story. There's also the fact that Diavolo's motivation isn't as interesting as Kira's, who in comparison just wants to live a peaceful, normal life while continuing to murder innocent women and keep their hands to do weird shit like this. Something that is very out of the ordinary for a main villain, but it's because of how very strange and out of the ordinary that it is that we become invested in it and Kira himself, especially over time. Now that's not to say that Diavolo's is bad, as the idea of him wanting to remain anonymous while in power makes sense, but on the surface Kira's is just more captivating due to the uniqueness of it. Now speaking of our main villains, the next thing that part 4 does better than part 5 is how it handled its final fight. When it comes to part 5's final fight, for some fans it can be seen as very unsatisfactory because of how Diavolo and his King Crimson are easily defeated by Gold Experience Requiem, as opposed to part 4 where we see everyone pitch in to take down Kira while also struggling to do so. Now, as much as I love Part 5's final fight, it does have its slow moments here and there, and the explanation behind Chariot Requiem's weakness is very convoluted. Yes, it makes sense, but upon first watch or read of Part 5, it can be very difficult to understand and also very difficult to remember. Part 4's final fight has no such issues, and also I love how we got to see moments where Killer Queen and Crazy Diamond both just squared up and literally boxed each other like it was Star Platinum versus the World all over again. Those were easily my favorite aspects of that final fight for sure, especially because, you know, Josuke is the main character and Kira is the main villain, so that is something that we definitely didn't get with the final fight against King Crimson. But to be fair, considering the kind of stand King Crimson is, it just was never going to work because it is a stand mainly made for one-shotting people in an instant. But yeah, again, still love Part 5's final fight. However, Part 4's was just better and was also followed up by something else that Part 4 did better than Part 5, and that would be the ending. So Part 5's ending is really good in the anime. In the manga, it was a little too abrupt for my liking, but the anime mitigates this issue by giving it more time to breathe. But even with all that being said, Part 4 still beats Part 5 by a landslide when it comes to having the better ending, because it does one of the best things that I think an ending can do for its story when it comes to a close, and that's showing us the conclusion of everyone's story. And when I say everyone, I mean almost all of the characters, even the side characters. With Part 5's ending, we don't really get this. We see what happens to Jono. He becomes the mob boss, which is great, and you see Mr. and Polnareff basically there beside him. But what about Trish? The last time we see her, she basically goes to the Colosseum with Jono and the others, but that's it. I think she honestly deserved a better send-off, and also we don't get to see her and Mr.'s reaction to Bucciarati's death. The story just jump cuts this part, which again just makes Trish's exit look even more awkward. Am I using the right word? I don't know. All I'm trying to say here is that it could have been handled better. Again, the ending is good, but it's not great, especially when compared to Part 4's, where we get to see Sugimoto Reimi interact with the heroes of Moriocho one last time, while also thanking them for putting an end to Yoshikage Kira, which is then followed up by the ending showing the conclusion of almost all the characters, while also having Great Days play in the background for the ending, which was a 10 out of 10 choice by David Pro, just saying. Now, the last thing that I think Part 4 does better than Part 5 is having a tighter narrative. Now, what do I mean by this? Unlike with Part 5, Part 4 has a tighter narrative because it avoids noticeable plot conveniences, moments that feel a little too convenient. And don't get me wrong, there aren't too many of these in Part 5, and these moments don't really break the story or make it too incoherent, but yeah, they are noticeable. And a good example of this would be Polnareff surviving his first encounter with Diavolo off screen, which isn't impossible, but I feel like we needed a explanation for how that became the case, like who helped him, was it Speedwagon Foundation, some random Italian citizen? Again, it just feels way too convenient that he was able to somehow survive this and that we don't get an answer for how that became the case. And there's not really any of that from what we can see in Part 4. There aren't really any moments that feel too convenient for the sake of moving the narrative forward, so Part 4 definitely has Part 5 beaten, albeit slightly in that regard as well. But with all of that being said, those are the 4 things that I think Jojo's Part 4 does better than Part 5, but that's just me. What do you guys think? Let me know if you agree or disagree by dropping your thoughts in the comments down below. If you enjoyed the video, then please be sure to leave a like and subscribe for more Jojo content. This is your boy MAMZYY signing out. Take care and peace.